The chair recognizes the Honorable John Hoadley.
Thank you, Chair. Howdy. It's in December of 2012, I was sitting around the kitchen table with my friend Mary Harper, and we were talking about how there was going to be an open seat in my district. And she said, "You're going to run." And I stammered some sort of reply, which she cut me off and said, "That wasn't a question." And I was sort of voluntold into service for this job, and I'm so glad she did it. The last 6 years have been a true joy and frustration at times. So there are three phrases that have guided my work over the past 6 years, and I'm sure my staff are sick of hearing me say them. First, if we all do a little, we'll get a lot done. Second is that government can do good things if we put good people in government. And finally, don't fall behind, it's hard to catch up. And every day, there are people around here who do a little to make a lot of good things happen. I think about our bipartisan care caucus that was working on long-term care bills, people like Brona Kali, Padma Kupa, Mary Whiteford, Darren Camilleri, Lori Pahutzkis, and others. And we were supported for the longest time by people like Laura DePalma. You change people's lives. My seatmate for the past couple of terms, even if there's an aisle between us, Representative Christy Pagan, she was my ride or die in appropriations, and she knows how to whip a vote. And I remember that one time that we Loraxed that tree bill. That made me so happy. Folks in the Creative Caucus, I think of folks like Rep. Affendulis, Leslie Love, Senator Geis, and other champions for all art and culture and the creative industries. Returning members, please keep funding the arts. And by the way, you should also fund higher education too, right? And I think about Rep. Anthony, you've been an incredible advocate for students and their families so they could get higher education and change their lives. Thank you. And I also think about the people that push us out of our comfort zones a little bit, because that's what makes this place better. You know, we all come from different backgrounds, and I think about my first seatmate, Julie Plawecki. And I remember talking to her when we got the first invitation for the House breakfast group, and we sort of like pushed each other into going. It was outside of our comfort zones, but I am so glad we did, because I went to every single House breakfast group meeting since then, with the exception, ironically, of the one where Julie Plawecki was speaking. And I think about her every time that I go. And I also think about people who push the envelope a little bit, like Senator Moss. You know, we started our legislative service together by ending a long dry spell of LGBTQ representation in this legislature. Now, he's broken another ceiling by becoming a state senator. And I also think that at the same time, we came in with a set of news articles that were contrasting us to our more conservative members, who some of those articles characterized as anti-LGBTQ, including Courser Gamrat and Representative Gary Glenn. But I say this because one of my favorite memories was actually at a barbecue on Hayford Street, where Rep. Glenn and I talked for the first time over a beer. And it turns out that we actually had been working on the same cities on opposite sides of campaigns all across the state of Michigan and across the country. I'll note that I beat him in every single one of those, but it found out there's a ton of other things that we could work together on. And I think that's what also makes the space unique. I will note that I hope Gary Glenn is doing well in his fight with cancer, and I send him all my best. I will also note, Speaker Chatfield, it's not too late to pass a Pride Month resolution. We could still do that. I think about some of the people that pushed me when I first got here, like Sarah Roberts and Jeff Irwin, who showed me that if you keep working around the edges, even in the minority, you can get things done. Or Sam Singh or Winnie Brinks, who helped me feel like what it feels like to be part of a good team. Or Rashida Tlaib, who always had another amendment ready and was a great example of being prepared. Or Stephanie Chang, who has this amount of work and energy to pass critical legislation that is unparalleled. You know, I even think about our Kalamazoo County delegation, people past and present who do a little to get a lot done for our slice of the state of Michigan. Senator O'Brien was probably the closest example you can get to a legislative den mother that I've ever seen, and she taught me a lot about doing this work. Or Senator McCann, tag teaming at events, the dry and impeccable sense of humor of Dave Maturin, to the more direct ribbing of Representative Matt Hall. I love all of it. I do have one regret, however, and that's that Rep. Iden and I only did one beer tour. That was a mistake, and we should have done another one. I also want to say that there's just so many good people who wake up every single day to try to do a little bit to make our state better. And I just want to send a sincere thank you to Governor Whitmer and Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist for helping us keep our state safer. And then there's lots of others, right? Robert Wittenberg, my work husband, LaTanya Garrett, bestie, Sherry Gay Nunyogo, whose voice never made me fail to stop and listen, Vanessa Guerra, who I couldn't say no to on an appropriation no matter how hard I tried, or Abdullah Hamoud, who always managed to find another dollar in appropriations whenever he needed one. And speaking of budget, that's where I spent my 6 years here. And so I think it's the best committee, as we said this morning, and it's because we have some of the best folks in the chamber. Pam Ferris taught me so much and everything I know about appropes. And to the team this year, including even Phil Brown and Chairman Hernandez, thank you for working on 2 crazy budgets in 2 crazy years. And to Andy Solon, Budget Director Kolb, Bethany Wixel, Kyle Jen, Kevin Korstra, and Marianne Clearly, thank you for doing the incredible work with getting our state through those 2 crazy budget years. I'll also miss our never-ending meetings with Senator Hertel and Kathleen. And I think there is a lesson, though, to be learned here, particularly in the COVID-19 era. It's how to work across the aisle on public health issues. I think back to the work that Rep. Canfield and I did with advocates across the state of Michigan to modernize our laws related to HIV and public health. Michigan was a state where if someone knew your HIV status, that they could actually blackmail you and potentially send you to prison under certain circumstances. As a result, so many individuals wouldn't even get tested because that was the only way to make sure that you were never found guilty. But the science got better on this, and the stigma and the lack of education around that prevented bills from moving in a long time. And it just sounds a lot like what we're facing right now. But it turns out if you do the work, listen to the science, and have good conversations, you can make real movements, and that's why Michigan is a leader in these issues now across the country. And I also want to say this on a serious note. Sometimes things happen in this chamber that I don't always think are for the good. I remember sitting in this chamber 6 years ago as we voted on a bill that discriminated against LGBTQ families and religious minorities in adoption and foster care. I don't think that was right, and I hope some of the returning members work on changing that. Because when this place is good, it does some of the best work for the people. And when we let some of the toxic elements seep into it, it strips the joy from this work that I know so many of you bring. And that's why I know that government can do good things when we have good people in government. And there are so many good people here. Alice, Sergeant Dixon and the sergeants, the committee staff, folks in the House Business Office who answered so many of my questions on our healthcare plan, thank you. You do good work. The staff, you've heard so many of them mentioned before, but also Renee Walker, who I thank for helping me sound smarter than I am, and Nathan Triplett for keeping me out of jail. A huge thank you. And of course, a few particular ones on my staff, Andy Solon. You know, when Andy and I first met, I was absolutely convinced you were the 100% wrong person for the job and I didn't want to work with you. However, Chris Young knew better and said, no, he's really the right guy. And he was right. I can't even imagine doing this journey without you. You are diligent, smart, strategic, and funny, and I'm glad that you're a friend. To Edie Trent, who I think is watching at home, you helped me learn the ropes of this job and cared so deeply about our constituents. Melissa Fish, you are one of the brightest people I know. People underestimate you at their peril. You have the ability to bring order to chaos. You're funny and you're kind. You're one of the people that makes this work have joy. And of course, Julie Vogel. So the first call I got the day after I won my primary, in the Democratic primary in 2014, was from former Representative Mary Brown, who opened with, "You're keeping Julie Vogel, right?" Phrased not as a question, but as a statement in that voluntold tone that I've come to hear from so many strong women. And the answer was, of course, yes. Julie, your friendship, expertise, calm demeanor, and sometimes quiet anger made this job just a little bit easier. The people of the 60th District, who you have been serving for over 28 years, send their thanks and appreciation, and I hope we had some fun along the way. So we're nearing the end of the speech, and I feel like I'm not taking my grandfather's advice that was repeated so often it became our family motto. Don't fall behind, it's hard to catch up. So to catch up and finish, Chris Gregg, you're a friend and a leader. I have learned so much working alongside you, and I can't wait to see how you're going to keep changing the world in this next and new chapter of your life. I'll also miss dropping into your office unannounced just to hang out. Kelly Doyle, you've been through thick and thin with me. I wouldn't want to go into battle with anybody else. Plus, Benjamin could not ask for a better dog aunt. Heather Ricketts, you've been a friend since college, and I've loved watching our lives keep growing together. Also, it is what it is. And finally, Chris Dieterman, you've put up with an awful lot along the way for the last 6 years. Late nights, weekends packed with projects, and way too many rubber chicken dinners. I love you, and thank you. So for everyone else who's thinking about how they can make their communities a better place, don't fall behind. Get to work right now. My friends on the internet will remember Jake Brewer, who passed away a few years ago. He worked in the Obama administration, and when they were cleaning out his desk from his untimely death, he had a sticky note on his computer that said, "Cultivate the Caress," and a quote from President Barack Obama on his computer screen. Caress is a network or group of people who, unknown to themselves, are somehow affiliated or linked specifically to fulfill the will of God. And the quote read, "Every day we use all the tools we have to fight cynicism, to unlock the possible and make life better for the American people and people around the world." So I'm paying that voluntold forward. Go find your people, raise your voice with an idea to help make life a little bit better, raise your hand for public service. Let's get to work.